Stopped recording. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Elaine Williams, and I am so honored and privileged to get to hang out and speak with the fabulous Lisa. I always feel like I mess up your last name. Well, what's Woiditz, who is one of the most brilliant, generous, evolved, amazing spiritual human beings I've ever gotten to know. And Lisa, I'm so happy that we're connecting and we're here today.
Yay. And also I'm excited to meet with my friend Elaine, who I'm just blessed that our mutual friend gave me the gift of you as my friend.
Yes, absolutely. One of the blessings of COVID. I know COVID has been so hard for so many people, and yet there's still some silver linings, and that's how we got to meet. So,
Right.
well, I love talking with you, Lisa, because I know we both have come from, alcoholic families, and we both have broken the cycle, and there's still a whole lot to keep uncovering and peeling away the layers. And I have goosebumps. Like there's always something new, and, I'm coming up on 22 and a half years, and I feel like I need my programs now more than ever as I navigate this thing called life in my 50s with aging and declining parents and family members who are dealing with mental health. And, I know that you do amazing work as a chaplain, and you've done a lot of workshops, and you've continued on with your mom's beautiful movement, education, I'm not sure what all you call it, but I would love to talk about, like, what do you think is still missing? Like, it just seems like there's so many people who try AA and they don't make it. Do you have any thoughts as somebody who's trained in a lot of different modalities?
Well, first I want to say, because I don't usually talk about the fact that I'm in recovery also. So
Okay.
just for anybody that doesn't know, I'm also in recovery from alcoholism and other addictions, including an eating disorder that started, I don't know, when I was 3 is probably the earliest that I can remember, which is very common for ACOAs. So, okay. So
Just knowing that to me is like, whoa, I did not know that there was a connection.
Well, there's a couple of connections. One is addictive behavior.
Okay.
One is an addictive behavior that we have more control over, right? It's easy to numb out with food, right? A child is going to have more access to food than to foods or something else, especially at that age.
Drugs, alcohol, gambling.
Yep. And there's also the sugar connection, which I am at my core, a hardcore sugar addict, and people minimize that. But I feel like more and more we're starting to talk about this. And, the sugar addiction is the other face of alcoholism, really, because both problems have their basis in the body's inability to metabolize sugar properly. So you will have, in a family, you might have alcoholism and other addictive behaviors, but you might have eating disorders, many of which have their basis in sugar addiction. 6 of one,
Wow.
half dozen of the other.
That's powerful. I know that eating, I was bulimic. I was put on my first diet in the first grade. So you beat me by a couple of years, but I started having a weird relationship to food at a very early age, and was starving and then binging and then hiding. And my sister was allowed to eat whatever she wanted, but I couldn't. Like, I was already having trouble with sugar, according to my parents, in the first grade. And I followed Janine Roth, who's she was the first person to talk about eating disorders in the mainstream when Phil Donahue had brown hair before he went gray, but yeah, that makes sense, that if you were growing up in a family where there's a frenetic energy, which is, you would seek comfort in something outside of yourself. And what's the easiest thing? I mean, food is the most one of the most acceptable sort of addictions, at least in America. We have
Yeah.
this overeating, supersized gulp me kind of thing.
Yes. And the other thing is, I mean, I don't know about you, but I grew up in a household where coupled with the alcoholism was violence. So I grew up in an environment that was very traumatic. And not only that, but I was born with this hereditary aspect, this body chemistry that is vulnerable to addiction. So there's both things happening. There's my physiology that I'm starting out with, and then there's the addictive behavior that I'm living with in my household. But then there's also quite the legitimate need to numb out. So
Right.
put that all together, and then fast forward, and I know we'll get there later maybe, but fast forward a few decades, quite difficult recovery process. It's
Yes,
complicated, right? A lot of us check off that it's complicated box.
it is super complicated. And, you know, again, back to the food, like I have a joke, it's easy to quit cocaine. You stop dating your dealer, but food and love, you're dancing with the devil every day, right? And so I mean, the more it's sort of like Pandora's box in a way. Like the more I study it, the more I'm like, it's a miracle I'm not in a jail or mental institution. And when I, like just like the things that I witnessed and saw in a violent house, and then the way food was like used as a control, food and material things. So but the whole goal of this conversation is to hopefully help people who maybe are identifying in some way, or maybe this is for somebody who's dabbled in a 12-step program, or has wondered why maybe they're in recovery but things are moving slow, or they feel stuck, or there's so many factors that can affect us.
Yeah, well, I think a lot about this, what I call the stuck place. In fact, I have a book that's half written, and that's the title of it. And
Oh, I love it.
yeah, and a lot of what I talk about, because as you know, I've watched this movement since before it began. So I was there at the
Right.
inception of it, and all of that that is involved. And so all of the early leaders, the household names that most people know, all the books you have on your bookshelf, these are people that I remember. These are people that I know. And so after all of these decades of observing this movement and hearing from people on a regular basis that grew up in households where there was addiction present, and have been going to meetings and doing everything they can do to still feel like they haven't made any progress, to still be depressed, maybe even suicidal, self-loathing, uncomfortable in our own skin, creating our own chaos, having crisis, living from crisis to crisis, all of those things. I've thought a lot about this stuck place. It's kind of the only topic I've ever thought about. And I feel like some of the recovery that people are involved in is perpetuating that. People look at being the adult child of an alcoholic as an addiction, and following the addiction model, say, of Alcoholics Anonymous, where our objective is to stay in remission. So we go for ongoing treatment. Being an ACOA is not that. It is not an addiction. It's what my mom would say, it's a fact of our experience. And it's largely educational. There are a lot of things that we didn't learn growing up that we have to go back and learn now.
Right.
Simple things like, routine, being consistent on a daily basis, handling simple matters without feeling like we're having a confrontation, all of these sorts of things. And so my attitude is really, let's stop talking about it. because we're entrenched in our stories. We've talked about it enough, and it's time to take some actions. So that's a topic, that I feel like that's what the stuck place is, that we are just perpetuating this idea of needing to be in the support group forever, when we really
Yes.
should be. We get what we need, and then we go.
This is such a good topic because I feel like we're speaking about a certain area, but I am seeing this play out in many areas. For example, I have a new friend, and he's brilliant and smart and charming, but he refers to his ADHD all the time, and I feel like he is totally using it as a crutch and an excuse. And it's kind of like when people go, "Oh, Mercury's in retrograde." It's like, okay, like, like, don't use things. I mean, it's good to be aware of them, but then what are you committed to? And I think for the longest time, I was in recovery for my own recovery, and then I would attempt to go to Al-Anon meetings, and I often felt like there was a lot of victim sort of speak, and the energy felt very sort of controlling and whiny, and my body, my stomach, like I couldn't get out of there fast enough. And I would think, well, I tried, and then I would, I'd go a few more months, and then I'd be like, I really need to go to this program, and then I would try a different meeting, and it took me years to find one that I felt resonated with me, because I want to process things. I want to look at things, but I don't want to wallow, and I don't want to use the story to justify where I am in my life, which I did, Lisa. I'll share. I've done a lot of amends and blah blah blah, but there was still a part of me that was being a total victim of one person in my family. And I had a breakthrough in December. I really saw how this story justified my lack of where I think I should be, and so anyway, I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like, yeah, I think it's good to talk about things, but what's the solution? Where are we going with it?
Yeah. Well, and it
Right?
sounds like your friend was, you say, using ADHD to justify behavior, etc. It sounds like on some level that became his identity, right?
Yeah.
I don't think for purposes of things like this, I'll say I'm an ACOA, but I never identified myself as that.
Right.
I don't relate to that. I don't, I might do things that somebody else might say are codependent. I don't identify with being codependent. I just look at it in a different way, and different meetings have different personalities. So
Yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
this meeting that was making you feel sick to your stomach, maybe that was really a meeting more geared toward beginners that really were in that early stage of just needing to share and vent and be heard, like that kind of first phase of where we're just literally starting to get it out of our system. And then perhaps you had outgrown that, and you were looking for a group that was further along the path, really getting into actively making changes in the way that you were living your life on a daily basis. And I think that's I've had the same experience too. I haven't been in a long time, but I used to just kind of pop into ACOA meetings just to see if anything has changed. And
Right.
and I would feel the same way. I'd walk in and I go, oh my God, like I would feel like I wanted to kill myself. And really it's because the grief was so heavy. And I felt like the leadership followed the model of AA and Al-Anon family groups. I feel like a different model is needed, because the objective, in my humble opinion, is to lead people out of there, get what you need. And as my mom would say, there's a beginning and a middle and an end of this educational process, and then come back for tune-ups. And if you've met people that you love and you want to remain part of the group because you're close to them, go out and do stuff. Go live the life that you've been looking forward to. Bring your people with you. But to continue to remain committed begs the question, again, channeling my mom, can you relate to people other than by your level of pain? Who are you without your story, in other words? Who are
Right.
you without your story? If your friend wasn't ADHD, who would he be? If you weren't an
Right.
who would you be?
And I think so many good points, and there's a lot of nuances here, because I think for many people there's denial, running away, pushing down. And so sometimes when you finally tap out and you surrender, whether it's your own 12-step journey or realizing, I think I'm more effective than I realized about my upbringing or whatever. So I think there's that discovery, humble, emotional bottom place. And so that's an important part, right? For people to be able to go identify, talk, be heard, listen to, relate, right? Like that's so important. And at a certain point, it's time to go to the next
Keep it
phase.
moving. We got to keep
Right.
it moving. Right.
Right. And I remember, I got sober in New York City and people kept saying like, more will be revealed. And I was like, what does that mean? Like I was so angry. and and they're just like, keep coming back. And you're like, oh God, but I remember, one of my sponsors saying, some of us are sicker than others. And I slowly got, oh, okay, and then, like my second or third sponsor, I remember she said, look, AA is a bridge back to life. Some people get stuck on the bridge. And, the slogans drive me crazy, but they're brilliant, and I feel like that's probably what happens in ACOA as well. And I just want to be, like, I have dabbled with the program. I have some of the literature. I went in all earnestness to a meeting and I tried very hard to get involved and to commit. And no matter what I did or where I sat, I never got to share. And after, I don't know, 6 times, I need to feel like I can share and contribute and get my voice in the room. That's an important thing for me. It doesn't have to be every time. But after like the 6th time of not getting to share, I thought, you know what, I'm getting a resentment, and this is supposed to be helping me and not hurting me. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to take my time and attention and energy and go, where it's more, it's going to be more productive for me. Yeah. And Lisa, thank God I have had oodles of recovery and positive experiences from other rooms. But I kept thinking, oh my God, what if somebody who's brand new keeps coming to this meeting and they never get to share or contribute? And what if they desperately need that, And so I don't know. I mean, it's, every program is different in some ways, but I remember it left kind of a funky taste in my mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. Then again, I mean, the AA family groups, I was raised in Alateen, saved my life. The friends I had in those rooms are still my friends today. And that's quite a long time. And I went to AA meetings with my dad when he first was getting sober. I sat in.
How was that?
Meetings. Yeah, it was the church basements that you couldn't see through the smoke. Everybody was allowed to smoke inside, and there were lots of donuts and cakes and cookies, and yeah, it was a packed house. Yeah, it was just a different era. A lot of speaker meetings, which you don't hear so much. Well, where I live, there aren't that many. There are a couple, but not so much.
I bet that was amazing. How old were you?
I was 8. But they say, from a psychiatric point of view, they say that your life between 0 or utero and 8 years old, that's where you're cooked. So my dad got sober when I was 8. I was already cooked. So we talk
Yeah.
about this whole nervous system piece. Um,
Oh yeah, let's talk about that.
and what I call the stuck place. I call it that because what I have come to is this idea that we need to stop talking, stop telling the story, just stop talking about it. And well, you know what? Should we do a quick exercise right now? And
Let's
I'll
do
show you
it.
what I
Yeah.
mean. Okay.
Show me.
Okay, I'll show you. You're the only person here right now, so we'll just use you. Very, very simple. So close your eyes and just take a couple of deep breaths at your own pace, just to quiet yourself down. And very simple. I would like you to become aware of the way you feel inside your body. Do you feel calm? Do you feel tingly? Is your chest burning? Whatever. How do you feel inside your body? And when you have that, just put your hand up for a second so I can see you're there. Okay. Now, wherever that place is, I'd like you to rewind back into your memory banks of your earliest memory of feeling this way. And when you have that memory, open your eyes. Okay, now, do you care to share how you felt in your body and how far, but not necessarily what it was, but how far back did it take you, that feeling?
Well, it's interesting because on one hand, I feel rested and energized, but I also feel a little, because I'm still getting over this sinus thing. And so I had done a nasal spray. So I feel a little jerky from that. And I guess what I'm present to is like how often I'm not checking in with myself. And I had a hard time thinking of a time when I even felt like I was in my body.
So would you say the answer was as far back as you can remember? You felt this way for as long as you can remember?
Probably. But I I guess so my memories are, I feel like I was a talking head. Like I remember being in my head a lot, reading, playing piano, singing, even performing. I think maybe performing, I felt in my body. And then I remember being at a lake house and running around the country and being really active and being physically tired and feeling good because I was out of here for once.
Okay. So the reason why I do that exercise, and maybe this wasn't necessarily a moment that I would do this in, but if you and I were in a session and you were struggling with something, and we were trying to really understand the way that you were feeling in that moment, I would ask you to tune in. Instead of talking to me about it, I would ask you to tune in to the way you felt inside your body and to go back as far as you could, because
Okay.
that's where the things started. And usually people say, I've always felt this way, right? If somebody says to me, I feel anxious, I feel like everything I say is stupid or whatever. 99.9% of the time, when people stop to get in touch with the way they feel, and I ask them how long they felt that way, they either go back to somewhere, definitely somewhere in their childhood, and many times people say, as long as I can remember. Like they just don't remember, and I'll say we, because I include myself in that, just don't remember ever not feeling that way. Don't ever remember feeling comfortable in our own skin, or, feeling competent and just, loose and carefree. So it's just, the whole point is to just stop talking and get quiet and go inside instead of outside.
I
That's
love it.
that's the
I
whole.
love it. I was in this really cool sort of 3.5-day experience, and the guy leading this event is sober, and he's very open about it. And he talked a lot about our nervous systems, and I've never done a rebirthing. I've read about it, I've thought about it, but I've never actually done it for myself. But we did a breathing technique that was so cool. It was so interesting. And I've been really thinking about, my mother was very high anxiety.
Mhm.
She still is, but when she was young, when she had me, and how can babies not pick up on that, right?
Well,
Like,
how can babies not pick up on that in utero?
that's what I mean. Like,
Right. Oh, that's what you mean.
like
Okay, yeah. So you were marinating.
whoever's carrying you around,
Yeah.
and I'm not a mother, which is a blessing, but I was, one of the women I was rooming with, she had twins, and she's a pretty high energy kind of person. And she said when she was pregnant, she made conscious choices to be very zen, because she did not want to pass on anxiety to her girls. And her husband was like, I wish you could be like this all the time. And the
Yeah.
minute they delivered, she was, kind of back to her thing. But I thought, wow, how exciting to have that awareness.
Yeah.
And for a lot of us born in the 60s and 70s, we did not have that awareness.
No, we
So,
didn't. Yeah. There's a great, I have this clip somewhere. I really have to find it because I want to use it in a presentation. I'm pretty sure it's Bruce Lipton. It might be Greg Braden, but it might be Greg Braden, but I'm pretty sure it's Bruce Lipton. It's a really short
okay.
clip of a baby in utero when yelling begins in the room and the baby jumps. And it's very alarming. And I remember the first time I saw it, I thought, "Oh, that's what happened to me." Like, that's just what came out of my mouth. I just resonated with that. So I'm pretty
Wow.
sure for myself that I was already like this hot mess,
Right.
from the very beginning. And my mom would say, you came by it honestly. So
Right. But you're not a hot mess now. Like, you're so recovered. And so, Lisa, if somebody's, watching this and they're resonating with some of this, and they are like, maybe I should try me, what should they do? Should they reach out to you? Like, what would you recommend?
yeah, I mean, I'm always happy to talk to people, or maybe pick up. Well, you mean if somebody is an adult child and just trying to
Yeah.
understand.
Or maybe they're not even sure, because to me, alcoholism can be confusing. Sometimes it's not clear if a parent really truly was or not, right? Like,
Yeah, well, I would pick up, my mom's Adult Children of Alcoholics book, and just read through the list of characteristics, or my book, Unwelcome Inheritance. I also have them in there.
which
And
I happen to have a copy of.
yes, that's mine. And I don't know where
Good
I always
stuff.
have the ACOA book. So wait, no, I don't have it there. Oh well, next time. But the ACOA book is like, it's the primer, And it's really, my mom wrote the way she spoke. So it's just layman's terms. It's all very simple. It's a very quick read. Although I would suggest taking it slow and just really kind of taking it all in. I would really
Like
start.
reading a little bit and then chewing on it. And,
Yeah,
Lisa, in case somebody's not familiar, can you just tell a few words about your mom and how, like the
sure.
work, because we've alluded to it, but in case people
Yeah.
are not.
So yeah, I just think everybody knows. Um, so my mom is known as the founder of the recovery movement for adult children of alcoholics. There were a lot of people involved at that time. But it wasn't her first book, but her book, Adult Children of Alcoholics, which was published in the early 80s, it was Health Communications. It was their first New York Times bestseller. And interestingly enough, it was out for a few years before it became a bestseller, and it was never advertised because everybody was broke. HCI was started by Peter Vegso and Gary Seidler, two guys from Canada. They had a little warehouse in Pompano Beach, Florida. And a mutual person introduced them to my mom, and she had this manuscript, and they took a chance on each other. And my mom's book, Adult Children of Alcoholics, and also then Struggle for Intimacy, became New York Times bestsellers through word of mouth only.
Wow.
That's a big deal. They were, not advertised at all. It was just word of mouth, which is astounding because it's such a specific focus, and it just speaks volumes about the gravity of the problem. And so many people related to the characteristics that didn't necessarily come from alcoholic homes. There were people that were maybe army brats, or people that came from ultra religious backgrounds, or homes where there were other kinds of addictive behaviors going on. But I remember as a young kid, my mom started her work as a battered wife of an alcoholic husband who was trying to empower herself to leave the marriage. And she started going to school at night at Montclair State, got her counseling degree, she got her master's, and then she started working on her doctorate. And her doctorate was on the self-esteem of children of alcoholics.
Wow.
By the way, that's what this whole thing boils down to, is self-esteem. The whole ball of wax boils right down to there.
I have to say, Lisa, we were in a meeting a week or two ago, and you talked about your definition of codependency, low self-esteem, and it just so resonated with me. It stayed with me, obviously, still, of just like, how am I relating to myself, and where am I in the scale of self-hatred, self-acceptance, self-love?
Yeah.
I thought, wow,
Yeah.
so brilliant and practical.
I really feel like that's the root of the problem, because like I've said to you before, we behave differently and our lives unfold differently if we are coming from a confident place, as opposed to if we're coming from a place of low self-esteem, right? And that just kind of, I think everybody can think that through for themselves. And the other thing that I say about, sorry, I'm a little sick, so my voice is froggy.
Okay.
My son would say. The other thing that I say about codependency is that because I am a chaplain, and so I do a lot of service and I do spiritual counseling. And one thing that I have learned is that as a chaplain, I serve where I am asked to serve. I am served where help is needed. And typically codependent relationships are characterized by the fact that one person is trying to help somebody who don't want it, right? So we're pouring our love and our time and our energy and pouring our hearts into somebody that doesn't want it. And so that's why I jokingly say to my chaplain colleagues, the cure for codependency is living in service, really, right? Serving where it's wanted. So I don't feel like codependency necessarily is something that's, you know, again, it's not a disease. I don't even think it has to be fixed unless it's coming from a place of low self-esteem. If you're somebody who loves to serve, loves to help other people, you're empathic to the point that you can't stand to see other people in pain. There's so many people that need your help. Go.
Yes, and that is beautiful, Lisa. And you know, to just to be perfectly brutally honest, so many times I was giving, 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 and what was underneath that was I needed to be needed, or I felt like I wasn't worthy of the relationship unless I was getting them to almost depend on me.
Right.
You know, that's how I used to do my romantic relationships. And thank goodness I have healed from that. But that's an exhausting proposition.
Right. And you know what, and the other thing about codependency, while I'm on a roll here, is, you know, I come from a time in history, like I remember when the word codependency came in.
Right.
So my definition of codependency really is something that kills people. Like my mother died of cancer. That's where her codependency got her. Right.
Yes.
To me, we just so overuse it that it has no meaning whatsoever. Like everybody's codependent. No, codependency is like, you know, the women that get breast cancer because they can't get out of the marriage. Do you know what I mean? That to me, codependency is a word that is, it's friggin' serious. It's not a joke.
That's a
So
good point.
yeah, so that, but that's
Good
just
point.
because of where you know, my particular point of view.
I love it. Well, and I'm just, you know, if anyone's watching, if you
Fired up.
sent this video to anybody or shared it, you know, feel free to reach out to me or Lisa.
Yeah.
And tons of resources. And we both love helping and sharing and helping the world heal itself.
Hey,
and our
Elaine,
own-
why don't you say something about what you do and how people can reach you, and then I'll talk about what I do and how people can reach me, because you
Okay.
have your own special, beautiful gifts that you share too.
Thank you. And you know, it's interesting. So I'm a video and visibility coach and a speaker, and I help people, especially women, find their voice and own their power. And I was speaking with a former client last night, and she was like, Elaine, your video work is all about transforming and helping people find their own self-love. And I was like, oh my God, I never thought of it like that. But like learning to accept this is the way I am. And okay, maybe I want to change my hair, but like this is my face and this is my voice, and learning to really accept it and love it. And that whole journey is transformational. And I was like, wow, I never thought of it exactly like that. So, you know, it
What do you
is
call
usually
yourself?
it's to help.
Wait, what title did you use
Well,
again?
usually I call myself a video and visibility expert.
Invisibility expert. Okay, right.
And but you know, it's kind of fun to think of myself as I'm a transformational leader who
Definitely.
happens to use the vehicle of video and speaking as a way to find your voice and own your power and love yourself.
Right.
So that's my latest iteration.
And what's your website?
Captivate the Crowd. Yes, if anybody wants to learn more or come be in my community, which I would love to have you, I have Captivate the Crowd Facebook group that's free, and I have Captivate the Crowd. You can grab your confidence on camera checklist, and that way you can be invited to the other cool things that we do throughout the month.
Awesome.
And what about you, Lisa? How do people find you?
Well, I have my website where you can learn some stuff about me and my mom, LisaWEW.com. And I'm working on building my YouTube channel so I can deliver free content and keep the lights on. So that's I don't know what is ACOA recovery and my name.
Okay.
It should come up on YouTube. So if you could subscribe, and as Elaine told me, just ask people to play the video, even if the volume's off.
Yes.
Thank you for that tip. Some people are doing that for me.
It's a great way to help anybody who you love who has their YouTube channel. You can just play their stuff and it helps, it boosts.
It really does. So thank you. And also I have a couple of Facebook pages, ACOA Recovery, Lisa Sue and Dr. Janet Woiditz. And Instagram, I have some things posted. I don't know, it's kind of a lot for me. So I'm going to be focusing on YouTube and working on becoming more consistent. My life's
Yes.
work, becoming more consistent. So
Yes.
that's
Well, I love your work, and you inspire me daily, and thank you for all the work that you've done. And you know, it's an honor. I didn't get to meet your mother, although I knew your father. And you know, what a gift, and what a gift that you're still here furthering the work, because God knows it's needed. So,
my dear, and I appreciate you too. In fact, us having this conversation together, you know, helps me because I'm you know, not very comfortable on video, and this whole everything you do applies to me. So
until now, you're working on it, you're getting it. So thank
work
you.
in progress. All right.
Progress.
All right.
Okay.
See you in the next one. Bye, everybody.
Next time.